and manufacturing trends in the automotive sector in India. As I introduce the panelists and moderator, I request you to kindly come on stage. Firstly, our moderator for today's session would be Ms. Kosturi Gosh. Ms. Kosturi is a partner at Trilegal law firm and is based out of Bangalore's office. Her primary areas of practice are general corporate advisory, M&A, private equity, and TMT. Ms. Kosturi specializes in advising multinational clients on their entry into India, advising on commercial, regulatory, and strategic matters. She also regularly advises clients on outsourcing-related matters, including some of the pioneers in the business process offshoring industry in India. She has assisted various companies, including several highly regulated entities, on setting up processes and procedures to ensure compliance in India. Really glad you're here with us today, Ms. Kosturi. And second panelist is Mr. Ranganathan B. Mr. Ranganathan is Head of Operations at Michelin's Tyres manufacturing operations in Chennai and has been with the company since the beginning of its manufacturing journey in 2010. An industry veteran of 30 rich years of manufacturing and related engineering support services in automotive industries, Mr. Ranganathan was with LG Equipment Limited Coimbatore as Head of Operations before his current role at Michelin. His other stints in the industry include 16 years at Wheels India and nearly 4 years at Mahindra & Mahindra. He's a mechanical engineer with a master's in tool design. Welcome you, Mr. Ranganathan. Next, our next panelist is Mr. James Rajkumar. Mr. Rajkumar is a mechanical engineer with masters in manufacturing systems engineering from the UK and is currently working as general manager capacity planning at Sundaram Clayton Die casting business. He has 25 years of experience in manufacturing operations, business planning, procurement, production planning, logistics, and has previously worked with TVS Motors and Sundaram Clayton Brakes business, which is now WAPCO. In his current role, he is responsible for aligning new business expansion plans. Welcome you, Mr. James. Yeah. Also giving you a brief profile of Mr. Vinay Lakshman. Mr. Vinay Lakshman is currently the Managing Director of Rane Brake Lining Ltd, which is a part of the Rs 46.9 billion Rane Group, an acknowledged leader in the auto component industry in India. With a background in the field of finance, Mr. Vinay's experience includes 10 years in consulting and 5 years in leading operations in a medical device company. He started his professional career as an audit staff at Arthur Andersen in 1997 and subsequently moved into their consulting division. He then spent 2 years of training at all the companies of the Rane Group and also TRW in USA. He spent 5 years with KPMG in their operations consulting group in San Francisco and spent 5 years as an operational controller at Thoratic Corporation. He joined RBL in 2014 and has played a vital role in building a strong organization. He is currently the executive committee member of the Automotive Component Manufacturers Association's ACMA and co-chairman of the International Linkages Subcommittee of the Confederation of Indian Industry, the CII. So over to you, Ms. Kosturi. We'll have the panel discussion up to 11:15. Following the three, we'll have a break. Thank you.
Is this on? Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me at the back?
Hello? So good morning. That was a very stirring speech, I thought, by the professor on what the electric vehicle scenario is going to be in India, and I think we take off from that and we discuss the technological trends that we are seeing right now in India and all over the world, and of course the next panel then does a deep dive into EV. I would like to start by going back to maybe 100 years ago and looking at what Henry Ford said. Well, people say that he said that, so let's give that quote to him. He said, if I had asked the consumer what they wanted, they would have said, I wanted a faster horse. But actually what he built was the automobile, and in a manner in which he could get it to the people at a faster rate and at a cheaper price. That's the way the technology changed for us. It's been 100 years. I think we're at a cusp in time where there is going to be a tremendous change. So the change that we are going to see now is going to be more than what we've seen in in the last so many years. So if I could start by asking each of you your view on what the automobile or the automotive industry is about. Is it about cars or is it much beyond that? If I could start with you, James.
Yeah, good morning to all. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for the invitation and also your presence here. Thank you all. To answer what Ms. Kosturi asked, I would say that now the entire auto industry, be it OEM or the auto component manufacturer, we are in the cusp of getting into the industry 4.0, which has been the buzzword for quite some time now. It all started a few years back in one of the auto conferences in Germany, and now we could see some of the European companies as well as the North American companies have started implementing some of the aspects of Industry 4.0. Unlike the earlier phases of industrial revolution, be it 2.0 or 3.0, 3.0 we saw a lot of electronics and IT applications coming into automobiles. And this 4.0 is going to be more of the connectivity that is going to be paced up, that is going to be led by artificial intelligence, machine learning, and basically put everything under IoT, Internet of Things. So the connectivity is going to play a larger role. Lot of the speakers talked about the electric vehicles, but parallelly the another stream of technological revolution what is going to happen is going to be in the space of the Industry 4.0, not just in the products alone, which the end users are going to use, even in the manufacturing process, what we are adapting today in the industry, that are going to have a revolutionary change. So when I say that, the machines, the production machines what we have in our shop floors, many of them are actually compatible for upgrading to 4.0. So when someone talks about we need to switch over to 4.0, it doesn't mean that we have to completely switch over from the existing set of machines. The existing set of machines, which as I said earlier, have already been loaded with a lot of electronics and IT applications. It all requires us to understand what is the extent of connectivity we need in 4.0. That can be defined by our production requirements in the shop floor. Based on that, we can choose to what kind of upgradation is required. So one thing what I want to insist here is switching over to 4.0 is not that completely we need to go for fresh set of capital expenditure. We can definitely upgrade the existing machines.
First of all, good morning, and thanks for taking time to join us in this meeting. I think James mentioned about 4.0. It's more about the process changes that are taking place inside the manufacturing setup. The way I see it is on the product front. Of course, Professor Ashok talked about electric vehicles. I think this is going to come. There is no change. So the connected vehicle, the autonomous vehicle, these things are going to come, and probably in about 5 to 10 years time from now, they will be the mainstream here. And when you look at the Indian system, I think a large number of population will migrate to live in urban centers, and therefore this will become a very important, the mobility will be a very key thing for them. For me, I think we are looking at, when you look at vehicles, it's undergoing a drastic transformation. But Michelin is a tire and services company. And then we have many innovative products that would serve the actual need in the coming years. Okay, one of the key things in, that anyone who drives a car fears about is the puncture. and what happens, the downtime because of that, and the need to change, and the need to look at carrying a spare wheel, etc., etc. Okay, so this particular thing, we are working on a new product that takes away fundamentally the air from the tire. So it's a kind of an airless tire technology that therefore the punctures don't make a difference to you. And because it is not making a big difference, there is no need for you to have a fifth spare tire. So straight away for us in Michelin, it's making it extremely safe for the people. Okay, that is the absolute truth. See, in India it ranks one of the highest, it's among the highest accident-prone countries. So therefore that we take away. Safety is the key thing, and that is granted. And then we looked at tires that can be completely built with recyclable materials. So it is not something that we dig into new raw material. Therefore it is a completely sustainable process. So you run the tire for as long as it takes, and then once it changes, when the time comes to change it, you could change, and then you can reprocess this to extract materials out of this. So that's the second part. The third part is about the energy efficiency that is required, particularly when you are driving this thing. So we can make tires that have a better rolling resistance, and therefore the energy consumption also gets reduced. So if you look at it, the overall cost of owning, per kilometer running cost will come down substantially, and over a period of time you will start to see the benefits of longer uptime, lesser breakdown, lesser nuisance due to that. Okay, so this is one of the areas. There is also another area where it is not going to happen overnight. We are working with General Motors, and it may take, I think, about 5 to 6 years before this concept is proved, and then we have tires that could fit a variety of vehicle segments. Okay, so it's going to take time, but it is already happening. So it means that we are in the process of making environmentally sustainable tires. That's the first thing. And then when you look at what happens in between, see, again, the key thing for any automotive user is not to have a puncture-free tires. So there is another technology that we have worked out. It's not actually a tire technology. It's more a kind of wheel and tire, the way they interact. And normally when you look at wheel and tire assembly, and when you hit a bump, or let's say there is a big pit in the same driveway, so you hit it at certain speed, the tires get really squeezed, and then the rims get damaged, and then subsequently the sidewall gives way, and then you have a blowout or you have an unstable driving condition. Okay. So what we have worked with the company, and this is a product that is running in buses, where the flange is replaced with something that is elastic. That means it kind of squeezes under load. So you hit a pothole and it just squeezes. Nobody even realizes that the vehicle hit a pothole because it's just not transferred to the cabin, and it gets squeezed and then it gets released once you come out of that. So with the result that the sidewall cracking and therefore a blowout is completely avoided. And these things are essential, particularly when you look at let's say autonomous vehicles and all. You need these things to be very reliable and running right through. So we have this that is working, and this is a scalable one. It's not something that is still in prototype. It's running between certain cities in France, and it's a working technology. And also we talked about reusing material from this thing. So there are technologies available whereby once a tire reaches an end of life, we would extract as much material from that. Normally when you make tires, we use a lot of fillers in the form of carbon black, etc. So with an end of use of, end of life tire, you can extract and make what's called micronized rubber that we start to use. And this can be used, so therefore it is a kind of a reuse that we are talking about. I think so, on the whole, when you look at facilitating a change to, let's say, a new mode of working, we have the products that will guarantee, when you look at a car, we have all the products that can support this and even move forward on that. Okay. And if you look at the commercial vehicle space, I think very soon for the commercial vehicle or for the fleet owners, one of the biggest expenses is tires. And now the tires could be leased out. We already have this working model in many countries where the tire is really maintained by the specialist, who is probably a tire manufacturer with a dealership in different places. So he goes about, and the tires are really connected in the sense they all know how many kilometers it has done, and therefore what is the wear pattern, and then they can take it to a center and replace tires. So the uptime for the fleet owner is very high, and because the tires are very well balanced on pressure, etc., so they get better mileage and they start to see more value from this. Okay, so like this we have several products and services that are really going to make mobility much safer and much more environmentally sustainable. And with the electric vehicle and all, I think it will make it only. So the future for us looks very, very bright, and we are very happy to be in this kind of situation today.
Hello. I think you talked about Ford saying about this. I think Ford, at least, he adopted technology, internal combustion engine technology, and railways was up by then, and he did this. But one thing he missed out was Nikola Tesla when he gave him electric vehicles back then, and he said no. He said it won't work. So although he said he won't go to the customers, but I still have reservations on what Ford did. I can say he's done great, but it's just that the adoption of technology, not looking outside the box. Just saying, okay, he's still, he probably is one of the pioneers, but I'm just saying how we can also say no to some technologies, because our thinking is, pretty much narrow. And I think you talked about the cars. It's not about cars anymore. I think if you look at the vision statement of all OEMs globally, there's no, cars is not there in any of the vision statement. It's all changed to mobility. So I think they even write about Tata Motors. They've all changed their vision statement, and it focuses more on mobility. And I think if you look at a car, I think from an Indian standpoint, there is a need for a car. There is a social factor, ego, and your pride of ownership. But I think again, it's all changing. I think more than one is the technology that is changing. The other aspect is also the business models. I think we look at everything here. I think primarily we're talking about the business model and how it works. I think Professor also talked about these batteries and all of that. I mean, it doesn't make sense. If you can take the battery out of the equation from the cost of the car, then what is the business model? So I think if you get the business model right, things will change. So I think, the business models are definitely going to change. If you look at all the new business models like Airbnb or Google or any of these guys, they don't have any assets. And still they're the most valuable companies in the world. So I think fundamentally it's going to change, and I think it's not about cars, it's about mobility. And everything that's happening in our country, like we have a metro, trains coming up. So I think at the end of the day, there'll be, we'll use different kinds of mobility for different needs. To go to the office, there will be a different way we'll get to the office. To go shopping, I think online, I don't think anyone will go shopping, but I think there'll be two-wheelers to bring it home. You want to, on vacation, will be a different kind of mobility. It'll be, and it'll probably, so I think cars themselves, I think OEMs will stop manufacturing cars. They'll be making cars only for the Olas and Ubers, for the fleets. And I think the individual cars will become, a luxury product like an iPhone. So I think you go to an Apple store today, you choose, okay, you want this engine, that infotainment system, this bumper, 1 seat, 2 seat. It depends on the need that you need. A mother may go say, I want a 6-seater. So I think it'll be very customized. I think that's what it'll become. That's my, shot at what mobility really means, but it's not about cars anymore.
I think that's a great point, and that leads me, nicely to my next question, which is in terms of mobility as a service and cars that are fit for the purpose, right? So, while you guys are not OEMs, but surely you are getting, a push from that side of the industry, which is saying that cars don't have to be built in a certain way or built in a certain space. There has to be a lateral thinking, which is applied to the design of the car, to the use of the car. Where are you seeing this play out, and are you being asked to kind of think out of the box when it comes to actually the design? I mean, you spoke about the way the whole airless, the tire is actually being set up, and you don't have to worry about punctures or any of that. So in a similar fashion, are you seeing anything that is different, or it's dimensionally opposite to what you have been asked to think about, and therefore the R&D is going in a different line to the conventional understanding of a car?
Yeah, I would touch upon some of the changes, technological changes, what our line of products are undergoing now. When we say electrification, we are actually, Sundaram Clayton, many of you would be knowing, we are a component manufacturer. We produce aluminium die castings for commercial vehicles, cars as well as two-wheelers. So when we talk about electrification, which is going to happen over the next few years, that means a lot of the auto components, especially the IC engine parts, would become extinct over the next few years. So we do take a view of this, and we have been, if I have to summarize many of our actions over the last decade, we have been working on many of the lightweighting projects, like converting the ferrous products into aluminium products, which has been the key growth aspect over the last 1 or 2 decades. But now when the electrification comes, when the IC engine itself is not going to be there, that throws a different set of challenges to component manufacturers like us. We have been working on many of the structural parts over the last few years. Like if I have to say, the brackets, for example, the engine mounting bracket or the battery holding bracket in commercial vehicles especially, those used to be of ferrous material earlier. Now we are coming out with different designs, and we have gone ahead discussing with some of our customers, overseas customers, global MNCs, to convert them from ferrous to aluminium. And we also have identified many of the parts that go on chassis, basically all structural parts, where we have huge potential to convert from ferrous material or steel to aluminium. And also one more thing what we need to take conscience of is when we go to electric vehicles, the weight of the product, what we see, like if you take a two-wheeler, normally it weighs somewhere between 100 to 130 kg. That will substantially come down when we take out the IC engine. So that gives us an opportunity to convert many of the other systems, even including some of the suspension system parts, which can be converted into aluminium. So those are the areas where we, as aluminium die casting manufacturer, we are looking at, and we are quite happy that we are able to take the first step forward and discuss some of the solutions with our customers. And notwithstanding that, even if we have to look at the processes, what we have been adopting, generally aluminium die casting, it has got 2 processes, gravity die casting and high pressure die casting, apart from low pressure die casting as well, which is used for very specific set of products for like cylinder heads. If we look at the merits and if we make a comparison between these 2 processes, there are some of the inherent challenges like defects, like porosity or many other things still we do have in GDC as well as HPDC processes. We are looking at another different process, which is just now evolving, which is called gas-induced semi-solids. We don't just use the molten metal, which is poured into the die for producing die casting. Instead, we use semi-solid. We have an arrangement even in our R&D. We have tried it out. Basically, the concept works like this. We don't take the aluminium to the melting point. We keep it well below the melting point. We store it in a container. We pass an inert gas through it, create a slurry, and then inject that slurry into the die casting mold to produce the desired casting. We found that this is giving almost 4 times better mechanical properties and also very drastic reduction in the porosity kind of defects. Apart from this, we also have been working on carousel kind of arrangement for gravity die casting. Like traditionally, we used to have one holding furnace which is feeding to one mold. So now we have one holding furnace which can feed to something like 4 or 6 stations in a kind of automated carousel arrangement, where all the carousels are connected to one common furnace. It will work with the specified cycle time, generally about 2 to 3 minutes. So each carousel is automated so that the movement is completely automated, pouring, and then the casting ejection, once the casting is formed, everything is automated. This we have tried it out in one of our new plants, which was opened recently in overseas. And this gives some astonishing productivity improvement of almost about 4 to 6 times compared with our traditional gravity die casting arrangements.
Vinay, if you could speak to the consumers' needs and how you are looking to address them, both from the perspective of what you're doing within the company and what you're seeing as trends from outside.
I think the mindset needs to change. Who's our consumer? I think do we look at the OEMs as our consumers, or do we look at the end consumers as our consumers? But again, today I think we talk about R&D. I mean, my R&D is. I think today it's not about technology. I think technology is it's all open sourced. And I think the rate at which technology is growing, I mean, we can't be focused on every small aspect. I think technology is growing at a pace that we can't keep up with, and it's all open source. So Tesla has open sourced all the technologies. You can actually go and access all of their technologies. Like Harvard Business School has all their Harvard Business Review journals are online available. So I think it's not about technology anymore. Yes, I think in certain areas, as they talked about in their field, how can you get better and more safer, clean, safety, and those aspects. I think we can use technology. But I think when you look at consumers, I think it is how do we applicate these technologies to our consumers, and what value is it? And I think that is the aspect that is challenging. And I say the business model. I think you talk about connected vehicles. It's been there for so long. I met the technology teams at Maruti and all the OEMs. They all have a technology. It's not complicated. You put a device in, you put a SIM card in, you get data. It depends on the kind of device that you put in. Not that much data you can get out, and you can do fancy things with it. But where is the business model? How will it work? I mean, really, in India, I mean, we talked about Western markets and the higher-end vehicles, Tesla, and all of that. Yes, great. I mean, there is actually value. But in India, how will this business model work? And will a consumer actually pay for a monthly SIM card, in the vehicle when he already has a smartphone in his hand? Why would he need to pay another monthly charge for the SIM card? So I think these aspects need to be figured out. And I think it's not about what R&D alone is doing, but I think the connect has to. We all know the relationship between marketing and and R&D. Because marketing, they are out with the customers and they understand the needs, and they're always complaining and they ask for a product. By the time R&D develops it, they don't sell it, and it's always it's a vicious cycle. I think we need to step away from it, look at really what customers want and consumers want, and it's different. The needs are different, and so I think that probably needs to. You can't ask R&D to develop anything. I think we need to figure out what it is, and the innovation has to come from there. Right? It's all about innovation again.
Of course, I think what the consumers' needs will drive where they go. But consumers, like you were saying earlier, they don't necessarily want to buy a car.
Exactly.
whole model, the model has changed, right?
Absolutely
They want to use a car and not necessarily
And especially in India, I'm sorry, just cut you up. In India, there used to be a pride factor. I mean, everyone, from the villages in the rural areas, for them it was buying a two-wheeler, pride of owning a two-wheeler, a tractor. I mean, buying a tractor just doesn't make sense for a farmer, because how often does he use it? So sometimes it's more about a pride factor, and then going to the cities, it's a pride owning a car. But I think the younger generation now, that aspect is gone. I mean, I don't think they're more practical, and I think they'd rather wait some time out and buy a high-end two-wheeler now. So it's completely changing. So the whole concept of that's what I talked about. In India, everything is different. We're starting with electrification, as Professor said, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, city buses. The distance, the inertia, the number of stops, the load, and point A, point B. So I think we go after that segment where it really makes a big difference. But again, so it's all about what the customers want.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the younger generations now, it's all about sharing, right? Whether it's a working space or it's a living space. They don't necessarily pride themselves in terms of the assets which they own, but it's really more access and the affordability that really makes a big difference. So given that kind of change in mindset, I mean, I've read some reports which suggest that the actual sale of cars may come down. So, what is the industry doing to prepare for that? Because, whenever we look within our own country, auto sales is a very large part of the sentiment, the GDP numbers, all of these aspects. If we are looking potentially at a slowdown in sales, how does the industry cope up with that? What are you seeing? What are you seeing, world over trends? Any thoughts around that?
So, I mean, I think there's a lot of concern. Yeah. I mean, if you talk to anyone here, I think that's the biggest concern, because till last year, everybody's talking about building capacity, and that was the biggest push from the OEMs. So, and now we start to go down that path when we're looking at these. I think there's a lot of concern, but I think as far as India is concerned, to me, this is just pressing the reset button, and I think we don't know what the norm is. I think we need to find that out. Until then, there's a lot of concern, but I think we just wait and have to see how this whole thing spans out. But definitely, I think the norm we expect, and we've seen this happen before. Two-wheelers growth rate used to be 10-12%. Today it's 4%. Once the denominator gets pretty big, and also hopefully, with all the initiatives that are happening in rural India, the migration to cities won't be, as much as what it was before. I think there are a lot of socio-economic aspects to, what affects this industry, and I think we will move from volume to value. I think people will start buying SUVs and seeing a big growth in the UV segment, and I think so we'll go up the value chain. But it doesn't really hurt the economy. But if you say cars, percentage of car growth rate is coming down, but I still see the value. I think the higher end vehicles are selling more. So as an economy, as a GDP, I think we won't be struggling. But I think yes, definitely and it needs to come down. The kind of roads that we have, I think it definitely has to come down.
So I think as Mr. Vinay was telling, the economy segment vehicles may see a slowdown in the times to come, but that will actually, with a lot of the connectivity devices which are going to be put up in the vehicle. In fact, all of us would have seen the ad what we see for that Morris garage car. So one gentleman standing near the window of his apartment giving a command to adjust the temperature inside the car. So those kind of interesting things will keep, especially the younger generation, still to go for the new cars, own the cars. But again, we need to see what proportion of such cars we will see in the overall sales of the car industry. That is yet to be seen.
Thank you.
For me, I think there are some difficult questions facing each OEM. So we have first the Bharat Stage 6 that has to come, and then electrification. So with these two, we will see a significant drop in the number of vehicles sold in the near term. But over time, with connected vehicles and with I think this should start to move on. That's my view on this.
Okay. So, when we speak about the change in vehicles, we have to talk about automated vehicles, right? I mean, self-driving cars. If GM says that they are no longer an automobile company, but a tech company, they're obviously thinking along the lines of how do we, get the driver out of the car, and that space just is used by somebody else. So, what is really the future of, self-driving cars? I mean, I'm a bit of a skeptic. I'm not 100% sure we are ready, both from a global perspective as well as from an Indian perspective, to actually have self-driving cars on our roads. I mean, what is your sense of where we are going? How long till we actually get there? What are the issues that perhaps you are being asked to look at? Because there are a lot of legal issues. I mean, I'm a lawyer, so I'm happy to put that out. That the challenges on life and injury, etc., all of that are very real. And therefore, if it is on the OEM, it will then be passed on to you as being as the automobile manufacturer. So, what's your sense for where this is heading, and what are the challenges which you are going to face as a result of this?
I think definitely this industry is not ready for the lawyers yet, but
every industry is ready for lawyers.
But I mean, technology we have to move forward. I think that is humanity as humanity. I think that is always our endeavor to. But this has to grow. And why do we develop these kind of technologies? Today we're talking about just Chandrayaan and going there and a robot moving around there. So that is ADAS. So that is automated driving. So I think we're controlling it from here from Earth. So I think that is what technology is. I mean, you can do that. But we have other aspects as you talked about. And if you look at ADAS, I think there are 5 levels, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I think we will never get to level 5, which I think that is what they're trying to, and that will never happen even in the US. I think in freeways, probably if you have freeways, they make it right, but they have the data and all of that. But I think it will still take a long time because of validation, proving, and the testing, as you talked about. There's no regulations and guidelines. But it'll definitely, in the US, probably, if you're talking about highways, that will, definitely, I think, happen at some point. But even in India, it will not. I mean, it won't happen at level 5 for sure, but it'll probably happen at level 2 or 3. We talk about, but then what really is ADAS is just not steering. I mean, steering is one aspect. The braking, the engine, how you operate your acceleration, the fuel efficiency. So now, if it comes to the electric vehicles, I mean, I think we can do this even in internal combustion engines. If there's a motor, electric motor for steering, there's an electric motor for braking, and so all of these now will talk to each other. And then it will understand the driver behavior, and you put in artificial intelligence or deep learning, and it will decide if you're braking too hard. I mean, that's what Tesla does, regenerative braking. If you know how hard you press the pedal, it will only apply the brake as much as it needs. So that's why the life of the brake is longer. So that is, according to me, is kind of ADAS. I mean, it's really not automated driving. So we don't need to really think about a guy sitting here and going to sleep as the car is driving. I mean, that is Star Trek, but that is happening in Mars. But it will happen here. If we can just say, oh, no, it will never happen here. Yes, it will not happen for that way. But if you get to the technology aspect, I think there's a lot of things that could happen where it takes today a lot of, no matter what you test a product from the bench, the vehicle impact testing is completely different. So that we call the driver behavior. So I think we can at least take the driver behavior out, and reducing the driver behavior aspect on the vehicle is, according to me, probably some sort of ADAS. And that will probably be level 3, level 2. Man-machine. I think in robotics we talk about Industry 4.0. So I want to be fully robotics. I think, like in India, there's going to be man-machine interaction. So I think that is what the future will be all about.
Yeah, I would say the data transparency would become a big challenge when it comes to going for completely autonomous vehicles. Because today, even Google cars are quite successful in a very controlled environment. But they are not so when they go to the public space. Because the connectivity, what we have seen in the last 1 or 2 decades, it is more of connecting the car with its passengers, with its driver. So it is it is more or less within the same car. So the autonomous vehicles will call for connectivity between one car versus all the cars which are there on the road. which is quite a long way to come. So that will call for a lot of data transparency between this vehicle has to communicate with the other vehicle on the road, with the infrastructure and environment. There needs to be a lot of data sharing, which is going to be a big challenge, is what I think.
I think completely autonomous vehicle is probably many years away. And for us in India, whether it is really required is a question mark. But I think there are several aspects about making the journey safe and reducing the number of deaths that occur in the roads. And it's not possible, for me as I see it, it's not quite feasible to have a completely autonomous vehicle coexisting with vehicles driven by drivers. The driver behavior is not going to change overnight in a big way. So with these two things, I feel that it is quite some time away. But in between, I think there can be a gradual shift for much safer ride.
I think the ADAS point that you were making, that there is more life for that, frankly, than there is for the AV. So you're right. So the level 5 achievement, I think, will still be a long way away, and that's probably a good thing in some sense from the perspective of jobs and growth of the economy and all of those aspects. So very interestingly, the Deloitte guys had done a survey to understand what consumer sentiment was around AV, and most of this was done in Europe. And quite interestingly, and it was telling that consumers actually don't want AV. They themselves feel that they will be out of control if AV becomes the norm. They also likewise, talk about the connectivity point, and they feel, and because this is Europe, so of course, the privacy right is a lot more ingrained in their system than perhaps in ours, that they don't want connectivity because there is too much information of theirs which will belong to someone else. And so therefore, the concept of V2X and, cars talking to one another, infrastructure, smart cities where cars will have the ability to talk to the traffic lights and things like that. That looks to be a fairly long way away too. Is that your sense from talking to the OEMs as well, and the kind of expectations perhaps that they have of you? I mean, you have a fleet management service which probably entails some part of this usage of the driver in information, right? So would you get the sense that this is accepted as a practice, or
the fleet management is something that will come to stay. It's already working in many countries, and it is supposed to reduce the cost for the operator by nearly 50%. So I think that will come. We already used to have it in mining applications, where the tire is really monitored for its pressure, temperature, wear properties, and on the basis of what we collect from the sensors, the company used to offer them replacement just before a breakdown. A breakdown for a very expensive equipment can be catastrophic for them. So we already have that, and today, and also if you look at aviation, the tires are serviced by the tire providers, manufacturers. So it's like that. So this, I think, will come down to fleets. And now in India we have few large fleet owners, but many of them one or two vehicle owners. Some of them are driving the vehicles themselves. And then there are people who depend on drivers. So there are different segments operating here. And then you need to have a particular kind of solution to reach across to them. So in Michelin, we have a suite of apps that people can, like you order what you want, a la carte kind of stuff. So you can take the particular kind of service and benefit from that. And this reduces the cost for the operators significantly.
But that, I'm assuming, is more information from the vehicle as opposed to personal information of the driver.
It is from the tires. So
Correct.
usually the tires come equipped with the RFID tags, and then we source this thing. So as you go closer to the tire, you get this inputs from the tire to a mobile, and then you can decide what is to be done. Okay, so it's not about, but of course you know how many kilometers are done, where people have gone, that you know. But technically it is just about the product per se. So,
I mean, I think the survey, just like again back to Ford, customers don't know what they don't know. So if you, so they say obviously, but saying no for privacy is, I think it's too late for that. I think everything's already there, and Google knows everything about you. So say I do want my internet to know what car you're driving and what the connectivity. I think it's too late for that. But I think, I mean, again, I go back to this point. It's not about it's a business model. I mean, everybody has a technology. If you go and ask someone, today, as he said, truck owners in India, there's no logistics. There's only truck owners. There's only trucking companies. 80% of, 95% of the truck owners are guys who own 5 or less trucks. If you take it to them, they're going to say no, they don't want, because they think it as, okay, we're putting these technology there so we can track them, we're policing them. That will never help. If you use technology only to achieve your purpose, it has to be an ecosystem. So I think that's the mindset. So nobody will want all of this technology until there's actually value, and they don't know what the value is because they might have had it before. So until they, it's something that you have to create, where there's a win-win-win situation for everyone. And the customers, like consumers, they don't know what they don't know. So the initial answer is going to be resistance and say, yeah. But again, once you see the value, which is why I keep saying that it is the new business model, and it's not about privacy or any such thing anymore. So it's just the, what we can create more. And I think we've seen, Google again, business model like Google, they have nothing. They have no, and then see where they are today, and Facebook again. So all these, the business model is going to change, and definitely, I think, this truck to truck, all that will happen, but it'll, take a fair amount of time. I was just joking then when they said the truck to truck, I think it will become like a Facebook for all the cars on the road. So.
I think when it comes to specific to car segment, I think we have progressed well in the last few years on telematics. Like there is many of the cars today, even the cars which come under 10 lakhs price bracket, many of them have embedded software which has control over a range of hardware, including various sensors, processors inside the cars, by which a lot of data is collected with respect to the driver behavior and the performance of many of the sensitive parts inside the car. So a lot of data is being collected today by way of this, and some of our Indian companies like Sasken Technologies or even the Algo, which is now acquired by Visteon, they have become pioneers in this, and they control a large share of markets, even supplying to many of the Fortune 100 companies in the world. So that is already shaped up, and that is happening now. But trying to take it even to the next step and converting that as fully autonomous vehicles, or bringing this kind of telematic software to truck industry, that is still a long way to go, according to me.
As Mr. Ranganathan said, I think the fleets, they will drive the business. So today our companies like Mobileye, which is an Israeli company bought by So it's like a third eye in the car. So even if you're looking at a cell phone, I think it's a camera sensor out in the front, and it will sense any close objects and will give you a alert before you know it. So it's like a third eye in the car. So I think, but there's a cost benefit to it. I mean, so I think the fleets, there are specific needs. Certain people will want it, certain people will not want it. The OEMs can't customize all these things to every individual. So which is why I feel like the fleets will probably, drive these kind of sensors and cameras, and there are different technologies there. There's LiDAR, there's cameras, and which will win, we don't know. So we can't move forward. So I think Tesla is betting on cameras. Other companies are betting on, LiDARs. So this technology is always going to be there, but on a meaningful scale, will it affect, how can it affect the industry in India? So I think that will take quite a bit of time, and but the fleets, I think, will I think Ola is probably now moving to with the Mobileye. And the government, I mean, I think you should also remember that there's also a social impact. I think the government wants to, have traffic management systems and all of that. So I think there's also mapping of, and right now it's all about data collection, and so at very early stages for all these things to have any meaningful impact for us sitting in this room. I think all of us here for the next 10 years, 15 years will be safe, at least with the numbers that we have. 10 years at least, I would say, not 15 years. But after that, I mean, I think all that will affect us in a meaningful way. But I think we've got to keep ourselves, the rest of the technology things.
Okay, I think that's a great note to end on. I think we have time for Q&A.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah? I think I'm loud enough. So I have a question regarding Industry 4.0, which you had started talking about. When it was, the show was conducted in Europe, what we have done is we have taken a few questions. We have taken the similar questions and conducted it over a different geography. This time around it was Middle East, and one of the survey results that came out was that although the percentage of capex spending on IT has increased, or IT or technology has increased, but the usage of IT for basic purposes like cost efficiency improvement, and cost cutting and optimization of supply chain and things was not happening. So it was a clear indicator that the spend, and there was an increased focus by the corporates and companies on spending a lot more on IT. But the spending was not resulting in the intended savings. Now, I've not looked at the results or survey results of Industry 4.0 questionnaires in India, but I presume it's going to be on a similar scale. Do you have a perspective on this?
See, again, we need to understand the degree of the technology or Industry 4.0, what we have to implement in our own factories. If you have to know little about one of the smart factories, which is now being built in Bangalore, with guidance from Indian Institute of Science, which is funded by, I think, Boeing. That has got a set of very clear deliverables. See, today, as a company, as a factory, if I have to upgrade my way of working from this level to that level, I should know before that why I want to go there. What are the deliverables I am looking at? What are my pain points today in the current setup, and what I want to improve upon? So depending upon that targets what we set, we can decide what is the extent of automation or digitization I want to bring in inside the factory. See, because when we talk about the connectivity, there is absolutely no limit to connect all the devices inside the shop floor, and also all the people who are going to work inside the shop floor, to make it as a complete automated setup. But we need to see whether we really require that degree of connectivity inside the shop floor. And one of the study which was conducted by McKinsey last year, especially for Indian companies, they have come out with a report saying that with just about a 10% increase in our capital expenditure, we should be able to, the typical auto industry should be able to see about 40% increase in operating profits. So it all depends on the deliverables and targets we set. That is more important.
My point is, you're probably right, and that's probably true for India too. That has nothing to do with Industry 4.0. I think it's because of no one gets this wrong with it. These IT companies, ERPs. You have the system, software, you have the hardware, you have the servers, and each one talks to each other, and each one has their own plans. For example, SAP now they've launched the new version, so that will not talk to Oracle previous server. So I have to upgrade my server. So I have licenses. So I think that's the capital cost that we're locked into these IT companies, and I think whether we like it or not, we have to accept that fact. So I think capex is probably more related to that, and I think that has no value addition to. But I think when I say that no value addition, I think I'm talking about we don't extract the value. But as an organization, when we upgrade and do these upgrades, a lot of opportunities are there to more automation in your process. And but I don't think we sometimes, we have the time and benefit to actually step back and make those fundamental changes, because it's retraining. Where we are, there's new functionalities and features in the new SAP. I just don't have, it's probably there's a lot of cool stuff, but as you know, we just want to get going with the business. So I think it's also a mindset. We don't extract the value out of these kind of spend. So I think that is one aspect. And I think Industry 4.0 is not all about capex. And I think every small thing that we do is probably can come in that space. In the automation of your accounts payable process or scanning all your documents, even that is accordingly is Industry 4.0. So it's also what you define as Industry 4.0. It's basically man machine operation and reducing. It's not about cost. It's also about quality, and consistency and safety. So you can also do Industry 4.0. Just wherever you unsafe conditions in the factory, hot machines. If you do that, it's not about cost, but it's about safety for the operator. So the Industry 4.0 should not be used only for cost. It should also be used for safety and other aspects.
I think you touched on the right point. So I think for operational efficiency improvements in terms of safety or machine availability, quality, you don't have to have the entire range of 4.0 tools. You can look at what we really need. And it could be, let's say, a robot in a place where you can take away the unergonomic conditions. That could be one. You could improve the safety of the operators. And like that, you can look at it. Say, for example, these days, when you look at taking some newcomers, he's willing to work for 3 or 4 years. And after that, he wants a change of role. He wants at least to move into another department, do different other kind of work. So what happens is the knowledge, the experience that he has gained is generally you need to train somebody and then you go through that cycle. You have this virtual reality that can help you to train people, get up fast. And also you could look at, for example, we are working on certain aspects whereby the method of work is available at the work post. And the person can see how to do it and he can get trained much faster. So for me, I think we have to be really frugal in the way we think, and we have to really pick and choose what we want to apply, and it could be very different from one shop to another shop in your factory. It may not be the same. Okay, but once we do that, the paybacks could be multiple. I mean, there is something that what you say, normally we end up saving or finding new avenues to save much more than what we start with.
Hello everyone. I have a question for Mr. Ranganathan. You mentioned that you're moving to tires without air to prevent actually punctures. Have you come up with a solution to recycle tires in a way where you could reuse the same tires for years and in order to for a sustainable environment?
Yeah.
Is there any challenge that
I think I just touched on that. As a vision concept, our idea is to have tires. In fact, the way we look at it is, today, tire is mounted on a wheel, and we look at it as one integrated stuff. So one product, you don't have a tire, you don't have a wheel, it's one product. Okay. Now this product, the way we look at it is, it's possible to make this product completely with recycled materials. We have made this product. The version that we are seeing up to, which is one version, the first step to that, is a step in the right direction. Okay, so we feel that the idea for Michelin is by 2045-48, we would like to go to completely reusing the material. Okay, so any tire that you make, a new tire, will come from completely recycled material. And it's already with the 3D printing technology. We can, as the tire wears, we can go have one layer of tread put on it, and then you can start to use the tire straight away. So this technology is there. Of course, some are in prototype stage, some are kind of pilot run in a specific area under certain watchful conditions, because we need to understand what are all the various factors that play into the life of tire. It's not something you sell today, it runs for forever. So the goal for the company is to completely reuse material. That's for sure. Today it is 20%. We may look at 100% after 25 years, but somewhere in between. But all the time going in the direction to recycle and recycle. And the puncture free is the first driving factor because we just want it to be absolutely safe. And that's the first driving factor for us.
Recycled tire is actually used in art as raw material for fiction. So we need to be careful.
The system is good.
Okay, this question is to Vinay. If you are a retail investor, will you invest in auto sector today?
Retail investor?
Yeah. If assuming you are a retail investor, if you want to make an investment in any of the stocks in the auto sector, so will you make yes, any one reason, no, any one reason? Thank you.
It doesn't matter. I mean, industry. I think you have got to go back to the fundamentals. I believe that sometimes as an investor, I mean, I'm not finance background. I don't understand the stock market and how it works. But I've seen my grandfather, make a fortune out of strong stock market. But I think all he did was his research, and you got to go back to the basics of the balance sheets. And I think companies like Maruti, the value dropping so much, it's because of quarter profits is ridiculous. I think fundamentally it's such a strong company with strong balance sheet, strong profit in the financial statements. So yes, I will invest in it. I will invest in the auto sector, but also which aspect of the auto sector. It's very important that there's a lot of consolidation happening. You see a lot of mergers, acquisitions. I would be watchful, but yes, I would definitely invest in the auto sector. But not a lot of these startups and where they have no value and it's based on valuations and things like that. I mean, I think Ola Electric is now worth 1,000 crores or something. I would not invest there. They don't even have a product, so I'd go back to the fundamental, basic, strong companies who have balance sheets and actually a business model and making profit and a long-term strategy.
But looking at the OEM level, but there's a lot of cures, whatever we notice, because there's one school of thought, hybrid is the future. Another school of thought is telling electric vehicles. Another school of thought is telling in China, they're telling hydrogen is the next, we need to move to hydrogen. But how do you look at that aspect? As a Tier 1 supplier, one of the major Tier 1 supplier from India.
I mean, see, I think one of the main reasons electric vehicles have not been successful is it started in the West and US. And I think every company went and did their own development. So I think, the Tesla did theirs, Nissan did theirs, and GM did theirs. But the infrastructure, they had to build their own infrastructure also, so it is not scalable. That's why it's failed in the US. In Europe, there are smaller countries like Netherlands where it's been successful because smaller countries, you can adopt all different technologies. In one place, you'll have a charger for Nissan, one charger for Tesla in the same place. China, they call the shots. So they decide what technology and then, everyone followed the technology. But the infrastructure was built around that. And that's what will happen in India. I don't think we'll have one technology. And I think as Professor said, there'll be multiple technologies. I think two-wheelers will be, charge and, quick charge. Three-wheelers will be swap out. So there'll be multiple technologies. And also the roadmap that they've announced is probably, they'll have LPG, you'll have a hybrid, you'll have hydrogen. Hydrogen, will take some time, but you'll have all these technologies. But for a meaningful way, for passenger cars on the auto segment, I believe, commercial vehicles will be, buses will be, what they're already working on, Ashok Leyland is working on, will be depot to depot, batteries charge, you can swap in, swap out. Passenger cars, I think, again, Maruti is 50% market share, and 50% of Maruti is owned by government. So I think the government will not let Maruti fail. So they're probably working on the policy, and that will probably, be they'll announce that policy. It's not the government who will get ahead of other people. So I think it is, if you think about it, it's Maruti, Tata, Mahindra. And then you have, the Nissans and Hyundai. Volkswagen and the other vehicles really don't matter anymore. So I think once the policy is out, I think we'll have access to all different kinds of technologies. And even battery, we're talking about lithium. There's other technologies in battery also. But I think the government is also based on natural resources. So where can we get lithium? I think there's a lot of thought process that has to go into this because this is going to be technology for the future. We need to make sure we have access to those resources, the mines, where these are mined. If all the mines are in China, it's just not viable. So I think we need to take a long-term approach. And I think we can't just stick to one technology. I think there will be multiple applications as we know about. There will be multiple technologies that will probably make it. Thanks.
I think we'll have to call the session to a close now. So any other questions? I think the panelists are around and you can always have a chat with them afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
you. Yeah, I request Mr. Johan Samuel, the director, to kindly present. I request the panelists to kindly remain on stage for a minute, please. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.